The medical bay of Outpost Helios always smelled faintly of antiseptic and recycled air, a sterile tongue that never seemed to fade no matter how often the filters cycled. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had long since grown used to it, the way one grows used to the ache of an old scar. She moved down the rows of storage units, scanner in hand, methodically confirming the presence of bandage rolls, tissue regenerator cartridges, and carefully labeled vials of anti-radiation serum. It was a routine she had performed so many times in the last 2 years that she no longer needed to glance at the readouts. Her mind wandered, drifting toward the purple shimmer of the nebula beyond the curved windows. The view still stole her breath, though she'd never admit it aloud. Beauty was a dangerous luxury when your duty was to keep people alive in the loneliest corner of the Orion Arm. The sound cut through her monotony like a thread of glass. A chime, soft and melodic, echoing as though the walls themselves hummed in sympathy. Sarah froze, scanner half raised, every instinct sharpening. She had heard many things in her years as a combat medic: the thrum of plasma rifles, the screams of men dying, the brittle crunch of bones beneath rubble, but never this. "I," she said tightly, already sliding her hand toward the medical scanner holstered at her hip. "Run a full spectrum analysis." "Source of anomalous audio?" "Analysis complete," the calm synthetic voice replied after a moment. "Patterns match known vocalizations of juvenile luminary. However, no registered luminary presence is currently aboard Outpost Helios." Sarah frowned. Luminary. She'd treated one once, years ago, during the chaotic evacuations near Vega Prime. Bioluminescent beings of translucent flesh and glowing clusters of light, their bodies pulsing with colors that betrayed their emotions more vividly than any spoken word. Peaceful, empathic, gentle, and never known to wander far from their home systems. The chime came again, softer, almost questioning. Sarah followed it, past the sterilizer units, past the long hallway leading to the auxiliary emergency storage. She stopped at a maintenance shaft whose panel, by rights, should have been sealed. Slowly she crouched, pried it open, and found herself staring into a hidden alcove. 3 small forms huddled together inside, their bodies glowing with a dim, frightened blue. The glow rippled across their delicate frames like storms crossing an ocean. Luminary cubs, barely the size of her forearm, light clusters underdeveloped, their voices chiming faintly with fear. Sarah's heart clenched. "Hello there," she whispered, lowering her scanner, but keeping her movements deliberate and slow. "I'm Sarah. I'm a doctor. You're safe here." One of the cubs flickered with hesitant curiosity, its glow shifting from blue to a fragile violet. The others stayed pressed together, tiny tendrils trembling. Even without a translator, Sarah understood trauma, hunger, exhaustion. These children had run from something terrible. Aye, she said softly, eyes never leaving the fragile beings. "Scan them. Preliminary health assessment." The results appeared across her wrist display. Malnutrition, stress markers, elevated metabolic strain. Survivors. Barely. A memory rose unbidden. Proxima Colony, the children she hadn't reached. In time, her desperate shuttle chased through an asteroid belt that had ended in blood and fire. She'd sworn never again. The Earth Defense Force had called her reckless. Command had called her insubordinate. But Sarah remembered only the look in a child's eyes when they realized someone had come to save them. Her throat tightened. "Not this time," she murmured before she could move closer. The station erupted in a shriek of warning sirens. The deck plates trembled faintly beneath her boots. "Alert," the AI intoned. "Unidentified vessel approaching." Energy signatures matched Kraken Hunter-class warship. Sarah's blood ran cold. Of course, she didn't need the AI to explain. The Kraken never came by chance. Hunters, slavers, creatures who dressed their cruelty in the thin skin of legality. If the cubs were here, then they had been fleeing, and the predators who had chased them had found their trail. The smallest cub let out a terrified chime, its glow collapsing into near black. Sarah's jaw tightened as she slid the scanner back into its holster. Her pulse was steady, her thoughts crystalline. The medic was gone. The soldier had returned. "Seal all access to the medical bay," she ordered. "Activate privacy protocols." The AI acknowledged, systems clicking into place around her. Sarah looked back at the cubs, their tiny lights flickering desperately in the half-dark of the maintenance shaft. They didn't understand her words, but they understood the tone. "No one is taking you," she promised, her voice iron-wrapped. "In silk. Not while I'm still breathing." Outside, the void shuddered with the arrival of predators. Inside, Sarah Mitchell, healer and soldier both, braced herself for the line she had just drawn. The chime of the station alarms reverberated through the bulkheads, a harsh mechanical counterpoint to the soft cries of the cubs. Sarah moved quickly, sealing the shaft panel and guiding the tiny beings toward the medical bay, her every motion measured but urgent. Their light patterns flickered between blue despair and trembling gold, and she felt their fear like a weight pressing into her chest. She had seen soldiers look less afraid than these children. The corridor lights dimmed briefly as power was rerouted to defensive systems. A new voice joined the cacophony, the sharp, reptilian rasp of the Kraken commander, carried over the secure comms. "This is Captain Vex Thor of the Hunter-class vessel Swift Justice. Our scans confirm that you are harboring 3 luminary specimens. They are registered property under our retrieval authority. Surrender them immediately under Section 47 of the Frontier Accords, or we will take action." Sarah froze in the doorway of the comms chamber. The cubs clustered close to her legs, their small tendrils brushing against her coat. Specimens. Property. The words twisted her stomach into knots. She tapped the console, activating a secure channel. "This is Chief Medical Officer Sarah Mitchell of Outpost Helios," she said evenly, though her voice carried the cold edge of steel. "I have 3 juvenile patients under emergency medical protection. Any attempt to interfere with their treatment will be considered a hostile action against a neutral medical facility." On the screen, Captain Vex Thor leaned closer, his scaled face split in a grimace that might have been a smile. His throat scales flared outward, a predator's display. "Patience? How amusing. You misunderstand, Doctor. Those creatures are assets registered and claimed. You are obstructing lawful retrieval." The cubs pressed tighter against Sarah's legs, their glow collapsing into a frightened, stormy blue. She felt their tremors travel through her body. Sarah's smile was razor-thin, the kind she had worn in field hospitals while trying to reassure soldiers who were already half gone. "Funny thing about that, Captain, my scanners don't show assets. They show 3 living, breathing children with elevated stress and malnutrition. They need care, not chains. You'll forgive me if I prioritize medicine over your paperwork." The Kraken's scales flushed darker. "Doctor, you are skating on the edge of treason. Do you truly wish to risk the wrath of the Kraken Syndicate for a handful of—" The feed cut suddenly as the station administrator, Exel, entered the chamber, crystalline form shimmering with agitation. "Dr. Mitchell, what are you doing? The Kraken are threatening military action. This station is not equipped for a firefight." Sarah turned, the cubs glowing weakly beside her. "Administrator, I respect your authority, but these children are my patients. Galactic medical treaties are clear no harm may come to them while under care." Exel's crystalline facets pulsed uncertainly. "The treaties will not stop plasma fire." "No," Sarah agreed, her voice hardening, "but I will." For a moment, the only sounds were the hum of the station's shield cycling and the faint chiming of the cubs. Sarah knelt, lowering herself, until her eyes were level with theirs. Her face softened, though the steel remained in her gaze. "Listen, carefully," she whispered, as if the words might sink past the language barrier and into their fragile cores. "I was a combat medic before I came here. That means I know how to heal people, and I know how to fight to protect them. No one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go." One of the cubs drifted forward hesitantly, its lights flickering, from frightened blue to a fragile gold. Its tiny form brushed against her outstretched hand, sending a tingling warmth up her arm. The other two followed, their glow softening as trust began to take root. The comms console blared again, this time with a new transmission. The Kraken captain's voice, louder, harsher, the scales of his throat vibrating with rage. "Final warning, human. Surrender the luminary assets, or we will breach your walls and take them by force. Neutral station or not, you will burn with them." Sarah rose to her full height, her jaw set. "Let them come," she murmured under her breath. Then, louder. "AI, seal the medical bay. Initiate privacy protocols. And delete all records of this conversation. Authorization. Mitchell 7 Alpha." "Acknowledged," the AI replied, the soft hiss of sealing doors echoing through the chamber. Sarah looked once more at the cubs. Their lights pulsed faintly, fragile but steady. Behind her, the stars flared with the arrival of predators. Squared her shoulders, her soldier's poise returning like a second skin. Let's give them a reason to regret choosing a fight with a healer. The first impact rocked the station, and the war truly began. The tremor of the first impact rattled across the decks of Outpost Helios, a low groan of stressed metal echoing through the station's bones. Sarah caught herself against the wall, shielding the cubs instinctively as dust drifted from the ceiling. "Seams." They huddled close, their small forms glowing a sickly blue, chiming softly in tones of fear. "Report," Sarah barked, her combat instincts snapping into place. Boarding pods detected. The AI responded in its neutral cadence. "Trajectory. Indicates auxiliary medical storage unit. Estimated breach in 90 seconds. Of course they'd go for the weak point," Sarah muttered. She sprinted toward the medical bay, the cubs floating anxiously at her heels. Inside, she activated the defensive subroutines she had once sworn she would never need to use. The sterile, clean chamber shifted before her eyes into something else entirely, a fortress of steel and medicine twisted into weaponry. The quarantine fields hummed as they powered up, invisible walls of variable energy designed to contain pathogens. Now tuned for another purpose. She keyed in adjustments, recalibrating frequency ranges to interfere with equilibrium sensors in Kraken inner ears. The kind of dizziness and nausea she was about to unleash wouldn't kill, but it would turn every step into a stumbling nightmare. "Doctor." Administrator Exel's crystalline form appeared in the doorway, facets vibrating with alarm. "What are you doing?" "The medical bay is not a weapons platform. It is today." Sarah didn't look up, hands flying over controls. "Quarantine fields, sterilization arrays, inhibitor compounds. I have everything I need to make them regret stepping foot in here. This violates every regulation. Exel." Sarah's voice was flat, cold, the voice of a soldier who had buried too many children. "The Kraken see those cubs as property. I see them as patients. You decide which law you're willing to break." The administrator faltered, their crystalline edges dimming, and then retreated in silence. Station shuddered again. Through the security feed, Sarah watched as the first boarding pod latched onto the hull like a leech, its cutting beam already glowing. The cubs whimpered, their light dimming to near black. Sarah crouched beside them, forcing her voice to soften. "Stay close to me. It's going to get loud, but you'll be safe. I promise." The metal of the auxiliary storage groaned, a shriek of tortured steel, and then burst open. Kraken warriors surged inside, armored and bristling with weapons. Their scaled bodies gleamed under the harsh lights, mouths twisted in predators' anticipation. Sarah pressed a control. The quarantine field rippled to life. Instantly, the warriors staggered, their steps faltering as though the floor itself had betrayed them. One slammed against the wall, another fell to a knee, their weapons clattering. Fascinating case of vertigo you've got there. Sarah's voice rang through the bay's comm system, calm and clinical. Fortunately, I have just the treatment. She triggered the second measure. The air system hissed, releasing a calculated blend of neural inhibitors. Invisible, odorless, it worked its way into Kraken respiratory systems, locking onto vulnerable neural clusters. Within seconds, the lead warrior dropped, his limbs jerking uncontrollably before he crumpled. Two more collapsed after him. Weapons forgotten. On the feed, Sarah watched the rest stumble, their motions sluggish, their voices slurred. None were dead. None would die. But they would remember this lesson in helplessness. The cub's glow shifted, dim blue giving way to cautious yellow. They did not understand the details, but they understood one truth. Someone was fighting for them. Sarah's comm pinged. Rena, the station's security chief, appeared on the screen, crystalline armor gleaming with stress. Mitchell, what in the void did you just do? My scanners are going haywire. Repurposed sterilization tech, Sarah said briskly, already recalibrating for the next attack. Non-lethal, effective. And before you ask, yes, it's against every protocol in the book. You still with me? Rena hesitated, her crystalline facets shifting between conflicted hues. Then she nodded. You've got 3 more pods inbound. I'll reroute auxiliary power to your bay. If we're going down, better we go down fighting. Sarah gave the faintest smile. That's the spirit. Another impact rocked the station. More pods, more warriors preparing to breach. The Kraken thought they were storming a fragile medical station. They had no idea they were stepping into the hands of someone who knew anatomy better than they knew their own weapons. Sarah's gaze flicked to the cubs huddled beside her console, their glow steadying into pale gold. She clenched her jaw. Time to remind them, she whispered, why you never, ever pick a fight with a combat medic. The medical bay hummed like a living creature, its systems running hotter than they were ever designed to. Warning icons pulsed across Sarah's console, angry red symbols stacking one atop another. Power rerouted, radiation emitters cycling, quarantine fields at unstable thresholds. She ignored them. Her focus was on the feeds one showing the Kraken warriors. Sprawled in twitching heaps within the auxiliary bay, another tracking fresh boarding pods locking into place along the station's spine. The fight was only just beginning. The cubs huddled together near her workstation, their small tendrils tangled like children, clinging to each other in a storm. Their bioluminescence pulsed in anxious waves, blue, violet, and faint flickers of gold whenever Sarah looked at them directly. It was trust trying to take root through the soil of fear. She felt it like a pressure in her chest, a reminder of promises made long ago. Her hands moved over the controls, muscle memory carrying her through a pattern of commands she'd once sworn she'd never use again. But the past had claws, and tonight it had found her. Rena entered, striding with the grim poise of someone who had worn a peacekeeper's crest long enough to recognize a hopeless defense when she saw one. 3 more pods just latched on, Rena reported, her crystalline exoskeleton glowing a troubled gray. My teams can hold 1 corridor, maybe 2. But this station wasn't built for sustained combat. Sarah didn't look up. She was recalibrating the sterilization arrays to maximum intensity, pushing them far beyond safety limits. Neither was I, yet here we are. Rena hesitated, then, lowered her voice. "I've fought the Kraken before. They won't stop until they get what they came for, even if it means tearing this place apart." Sarah's jaw clenched. "Then they'll learn what it feels like to bleed for it." The words were sharper than she intended, dredging something up from memory's abyss. She saw in her mind the Proxima colony again, a burned-out research settlement, the smell of charred walls, the eerie silence broken only by the faintest, terrified cries. She remembered the children she'd found huddled in cages, their wounds untended because slavers didn't see the point in treating property. She remembered her commander's order to wait for reinforcements and her refusal. 3 days alone, in an asteroid belt, hunting predators with nothing but a shuttle's medical bay turned into an arsenal. She had saved 16. The others, she forced her hands to stay steady on the console. The others had taught her what failure cost. You left the Defense Force because of that, didn't you? Rena asked softly, almost reading her thoughts. Sarah's lips curved into something that wasn't a smile. "I left because I stopped pretending the rules would protect the innocent." She gestured to the glowing cubs, their lights flickering. In restless sleep, "I'm not making the same mistake twice." The console beeped, dragging her back to the present. A Kraken ship was powering its main cannon. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "AI, bring regeneration arrays online?" "Doctor," the station's artificial voice warned, "those arrays are designed for tissue restoration. Repurposing them at full power will just do it." The bay lights dimmed, then flared. Sarah watched the external sensors translate. The energy surge into a false signature one that mimicked a banned class of planetary assault weapon. Illegal, terrifying, and if the Kraken were smart, more than enough to make them hesitate. Sure enough, the slaver vessel's power curve flatlined, their cannon powered down. The ship held its distance, its captain unwilling to test whether she was bluffing. Rena stared at her, facets glinting with something between horror and admiration. "You just bluffed a warship with a hospital bed." Sarah allowed herself. Thin smile. Amazing what happens when bullies think you're carrying a bigger stick. Before Rena could respond, the deck shook violently. The cubs jolted awake, chiming in fright, their light collapsing to a stormy blue. Sarah ran to them, dropping to her knees. One floated forward echo, the smallest, the one who mimicked her movements. It pressed against her chest, trembling. "It's all right," she whispered, stroking its glowing tendrils. "I've got you." Rena's voice came urgent. "Mitchell, we've confirmed it. 3 more Kraken warships have just dropped out of FTL, reinforcements. They're surrounding us." Sarah exhaled slowly, a long, deliberate breath that steadied the storm in her chest. She rose, Echo still hovering close to her shoulder, its light flickering between terror and defiance. "All right," she said, calm as stone. "Then it's time we show them what it costs to hunt children under my watch." Her hands flew over the controls, pulling up schematics and rerouting power. The medical bay hummed louder, alive with her defiance. The cubs glowed faintly gold now, as if they understood. A siege had only just begun. And Sarah Mitchell, healer and soldier both, would make the Kraken remember the name of Outpost Helios until the end of their days. The void outside Outpost Helios flared with unnatural light as the Kraken, reinforcements, took position, 4 warships forming a tightening noose around the lonely station. The starfield itself seemed to dim beneath the weight of their presence, their hulls bristling with weapon ports and boarding clamps that gleamed with predatory intent. Inside the medical bay, the hum of machinery had risen to a steady roar. Monitors flashed red across Sarah's console shield strain. Radiation overflows, power reserves bleeding faster than the reactor could replace them. She ignored the alarms, her attention fixed on the feeds of Kraken pods crawling across the station's hull like parasites seeking flesh. Status of stasis field modifications? She demanded. Operating at 73%, the AI replied. However, power reserves are critically low. Estimated 17 minutes until containment collapse. 17 minutes is enough. Sarah's fingers never stopped. Moving, recalibrating the overlapping lattice of energy that wrapped the station in a fragile cocoon. They were meant to keep patients in stasis for surgery, not repel warship cannon fire, but she had rewired them into something monstrous and desperate, a shield amplifier born from medical ingenuity. Rena stood beside her at the auxiliary defense console, crystalline facets glowing with tension. 3 pods have breached the outer hull. My teams are stalling them, but they won't hold long. If the Kraken break through, they won't, Sarah cut in. She glanced toward the cubs, huddled in their blanket nest. Their lights pulsed, an erratic mix of violet and blue, chiming in tones that wavered between panic and sorrow. And then, suddenly, something changed. The smallest cub Echo, the one who followed Sarah with mimicry that bordered on devotion, lifted itself into the air. Its glow brightened from fearful blue to a tentative gold, then flared outward, a ripple of light that rolled across its siblings. The other 2 rose, their patterns syncing, until the trio pulsed together in a synchronized harmony of shifting colors. The effect rippled through the bay. Consoles flickered, sensors recalibrated. Sarah blinked at the tactical display. As Kraken targeting locks began to fluctuate, their aim skewing as if confused by false echoes, Rena leaned forward. They're interfering with the Kraken systems. Their light frequencies some kind of disruption field. Sarah's chest tightened. The cubs weren't helpless after all. They were fighting with her. Good, she murmured, voice fierce. With pride, let's use it. The station shuddered under another impact, this one harder than the rest. A corridor feed showed Kraken warriors bursting through in armored exosuits, weapons spitting plasma. Sarah tapped a control, flooding. The section with concentrated UV sterilization bursts. The suits weren't built for such intensity. Visors darkened, sensors scrambled. The warriors stumbled blind into her waiting traps. Warning, the AI intoned. External fleet weapons powering up. Probability of sustained bombardment, 92%. Sarah clenched her jaw. The Kraken weren't trying to capture anymore. They were preparing to annihilate the station, cubs and all. She tapped into the long-range comms, her hands steady though her heart thundered. Medical priority alert. She transmitted across every channel. Encryptions overridden. This is Chief Medical Officer Sarah Mitchell of Outpost Helios. We are under direct assault by Kraken warships. I am sheltering 3 juvenile luminary patients under emergency protection. Transmission includes full medical scans and Kraken. Violations of neutrality. Broadcasting to all stations and humanitarian networks. Rena's crystalline facets flashed alarm. You just exposed us to half the sector. The Council will let them, Sarah said. If I'm going down, the whole galaxy's going to watch it happen. The bay trembled again as another blast rocked the shields. Echo floated to Sarah's shoulder, glowing defiantly, its chiming song sharper now, brighter, almost warlike. The other cubs joined it, their light a small sun against the gloom. Sarah reached up, her hand brushing Echo's glowing form. You're not alone, she whispered, her voice carrying both to the cubs and to herself. Outside, the Kraken fleet closed its circle, weapons primed. Inside, a combat medic turned healer turned guardian prepared to make her final stand. The galaxy was listening now, and Sarah Mitchell was determined to show it the fury of a healer. The void around Outpost Helios had become a storm of light and fury. Plasma fire lanced across the dark, Kraken cannons hammering relentlessly against the fragile stasis field shields Sarah had stitched together from medical equipment and desperation. Each impact sent tremors through the deck, making the cubs cry out in frightened chimes that cut through even the howl of alarms. Shields holding at 31%. The AI reported, calm in the face of annihilation. Collapse imminent. In 4 minutes. Sarah's hands blurred across the console, rerouting power from non-essential systems, even life support in unused sectors. Her gaze flicked briefly to the cubs huddled near her station Echo, still floating closest, glowing. Defiantly, as if it understood that its tiny light was part of the fight. "Doctor." Rena's voice snapped her focus to the comms board. "Incoming transmissions. Multiple sources." Sarah tapped the feed open, bracing herself for another Kraken ultimatum. Instead, the main screen fractured into dozens of windows, each one showing a different face, different uniform, different banner. "This is Dr. Chun from Arcturus Medical." A calm voice rang out, framed by the sterile light of another distant med bay. "We received your alert. The Council is in emergency session, but we thought you could use some unofficial support." Another voice followed, drier, military. "Amazing how many ships happen to be conducting routine exercises in this sector." The screen panned to show 3 heavy cruisers sliding into position behind the Kraken fleet. Weapons already warming. Sarah blinked. For the first time since the siege began, something inside her chest loosened. She wasn't alone. The Kraken. Captain's scaled face cut across the transmissions, his fury palpable even through static. "These are internal matters of retrieval. The luminary specimens belong to us. This is Kraken jurisdiction, not..." Another feed overrode him, the shimmering form of Ambassador TIA of the Galactic Council taking center. Her eyes burned with controlled rage. "Captain Vex Thor, your actions are in direct violation of medical neutrality under Article 15. You fired on a medical facility. You attempted to seize children as property. Stand down immediately, or your next shot will be considered an act of war against the Council itself." The Kraken captain's scales flushed dark crimson. "They are not children, they are assets. Registered, claimed." T.I.'s voice cut through him like a blade. "I have the scans Dr. Mitchell transmitted. Neural patterns, trauma markers, metabolic profiles. They are living children. Or shall we discuss why your property carries evidence of witnessing their parents' deaths?" Sarah glanced back at the cubs. At the mention of their parents, their glow collapsed to a deep, aching blue. She moved instantly, kneeling beside them, her presence steady, her hand brushing Echo's trembling form. "You're safe," she whispered. "You're safe with me." Across the screen, the Kraken captain faltered. His crew could be seen behind him, scales twitching with unease. For all their bluster, even they knew when they'd lost the veil of legitimacy. "Ambassador." Tia's voice rang again, sharp as steel. "Your fleet is surrounded, Captain. Withdraw or be destroyed." Sarah stood, her combat medic smile returning, cold and unyielding. She leaned into the cum feed, her voice low but carrying. "You wanted to see human fury, Captain. Understand. This compassion built it. And if you test me again, I'll show you just how dangerous a healer can be." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, with visible reluctance, the Kraken ships powered down weapons, their engines flaring as they pulled back from the station. Not in defeat, Sarah knew, but in bitter retreat. Relief rippled through the cum channels. Applause, laughter, even tears. But Sarah barely heard it. The cubs had clustered close around her, their lights pulsing now in brilliant gold, their chimes no longer fearful but bright, almost joyful. Ambassador T.I.'s image softened. "Dr. Mitchell, the Galactic Medical Council recognizes your actions today in defense of neutrality and innocent lives. Until the luminary government can reclaim them, you are hereby appointed their guardian." Sarah's throat tightened. Guardian. The word felt heavier than any rank or commission she'd ever held. She looked at the cubs, who had chosen her in. their own silent way, and nodded once. Understood. Rena exhaled, her crystalline form glowing a proud cobalt. Looks like you just changed the law, Sarah. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Not the law, just the lesson. Sometimes the only thing standing between monsters and children is a medic with nothing left to lose. Outside the viewport, a Kraken fleet dwindled into the distance, and the Allied ships arrayed themselves protectively around Helios. For the first time since the alarm had sounded, Sarah let herself breathe. The battle was over. But in the stillness that followed, she knew the war for these children's future had only just begun. The aftermath of the siege lingered like smoke in the air, even though the battle had ended hours before. Outpost Helios floated in its orbit, scarred but still whole, wrapped in the protective embrace of ships from half a dozen worlds. Repair. Crews moved like ants across the outer hull, patching breaches, while diplomats, council envoys, and medics flooded the comm channels in a storm of voices. Inside the medical bay, Sarah Mitchell sat slumped in her chair, exhaustion weighing heavy on her shoulders. Her hands still trembled faintly from the adrenaline, though she refused to let it show in front of the cubs. They clustered near her workstation in their blanket nest, pulsing with gentle gold light. Peaceful, content, alive. For the first time since she'd found them in that maintenance shaft. They glowed without fear. Dr. Mitchell, the AI said gently, incoming secure transmission from the Galactic Medical Council. Priority Alpha. Sarah sighed, straightening her back. Put it through. The holoscreen shimmered, and Ambassador TIA appeared once more, flanked this time by two figures whose translucent forms marked them instantly as luminary elders. Their bodies glowed with steady radiance, their clusters arranged in the complex fractal patterns of adulthood. Sarah felt the cubs stir at her side, their lights shifting rapidly in recognition. One of the elders pulsed with a deep, resonant gold. Children, it chimed, the translation band overlaying words in a voice as old as the stars. The cubs shot upward, darting toward the image, their chimes bright and frantic with joy. Sarah's chest tightened. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe the story was ending here, that she had simply saved lost children, returned them to their people. But then T.I.'s gaze sharpened. Dr. Mitchell, she said softly, we have completed the full biometric analysis you transmitted. You should be aware, these cubs are not ordinary younglings. Sarah frowned, wary. Go on. The second luminary elder's glow deepened, rippling in solemn hues. These three are the last surviving offspring of the High Council lineage. Their parents were slain during the Kraken assault on our outer colonies. The cubs you protected are not merely children. They are heirs. The words hit harder than any Kraken cannon. Sarah glanced at the cubs, who hovered near the projection, chiming in soft, trusting tones. They looked so small, so fragile, yet the weight of an entire people now rested on their glowing forms. Rena let out a low whistle, crystalline facets flashing in stunned disbelief. You didn't just protect refugees, Sarah. You safeguarded a succession line. The Kraken weren't chasing them for ransom. They were trying to topple a government. Ambassador Tia's voice hardened. The Council will issue formal declarations against the Kraken Syndicate. But know this, your stand has already changed the course of galactic politics. News of what you did here is spreading across every channel. You are not only their guardian now, you are a symbol. Sarah's throat was tight, her voice low. I didn't fight for symbols. I fought for children. The luminary elder pulsed brightly, warmth flooding the translation. And that, Dr. Mitchell, is why you are the guardian they need. The cubs drifted back to her, surrounding her in a halo of light. Echo brushed against her cheek, its glow blazing into brilliant gold, the kind of radiance she now understood. As more than trust, it was bonding, permanent and irrevocable. The other two joined, their synchronized glow washing the medical bay in shimmering auroras of gold and blue. Sarah closed her eyes briefly against the sting of tears. She had come. To Outpost Helios, a woman running from her failures. She had become, in a single day, a line in the sand the galaxy itself could not ignore. The council transmission ended, leaving the medical bay quiet, but for the soft chiming of the Cubs. Sarah sank back into her chair, staring out through the curved window at the purple nebula beyond. The stars seemed brighter tonight, as if watching. Rena broke the silence, her crystalline facets glowing a proud cobalt. So, former combat medic. Now official guardian of alien royalty. Quite a promotion. Sarah let out a breath that turned into a soft, tired laugh. Don't remind me. The paperwork alone will kill me. The Cubs chimed again, their laughter song filling the air like bells. Sarah reached out, resting a hand near them, their glow spilling over her fingers like living sunlight. Begin medical log, she murmured. Final entry of the siege. 3 patients stable and recovering. Prognosis excellent. Her gaze lingered on the children who had, without knowing it, reshaped her life. And as for me, I'll figure it out. After all, who better to guard the future than someone who knows exactly how fragile it is? Outside, the Allied ships arrayed themselves in watchful formation. Inside, 3 Cubs pulsed with joy against the quiet hum of machinery. The galaxy had witnessed the fury of a healer, and nothing would ever be the same again.